Township Board to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please. Mrs. Meltzer?
Thank you. Mrs. West?
Here.
Mr. Keys?
Here.
Mr. Pearl?
Here.
Mr. Cannon?
Here.
Mr. Argona?
Here.
Mr. Gilliam?
Here.
Mrs. Meltzer here.
Are there any additions and/or deletions to tonight's agenda?
There are. Item number 9 has been deleted. And I have 4 add-ons. Item 20, introduction of ordinances number 460 and 461. Number 21, resolution recognizing September 17th to the 23rd as Constitution Week. Item 22, resolution recognizing September 13th to the 22nd as Welcoming Week. And 23, request approval to extend roofing warranty.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. For the amended agenda, roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you, and welcome to your Township Board meeting this evening. If there's any item you wish to discuss as it comes before the board, please come to the podium and clearly give us your name and address for the record. If there's something you wish to discuss that's not part of the agenda, we have public comment cards to your left in the front of the room. Please fill one out, and we'll hear what you have to say at the end of the meeting. I have 2 public service announcements. Number 1, on Wednesday, 9/11, we will partner with Resurrection Cemetery once again to have a beautiful ceremony in their Veteran Memorial Gardens. It's very beautiful, and it's hopefully going to be a nice night. Also coming up here in the township before our next township board meeting is the Festival of the Senses, September 21st and 22nd. The hours are 10 till 5 daily. And with that, we'll take item number 1, resolution to adopt September as Deaf Awareness Month.
Dear Township Board members, on Tuesday, August 27th, 2019, the Cultural Diversity Committee met and discussed raising awareness within the township for our deaf community. The committee approved a motion to recommend that the Board of Trustees adopt a resolution recognizing September 23rd through the 29th as Deaf Awareness Week. All of the township is enriched by the diverse and unique heritage, language, and culture of the deaf community. The purpose of Deaf Awareness Week is to increase public awareness of the issues and the culture of people who are deaf. The committee also approved a motion requesting the Board of Trustees make an effort to invite a sign language interpreter to attend the board's September 30th meeting in recognition of Deaf Awareness Week. If you have questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Mike Keys, trustee.
Thank you. Do you have somebody in mind to request that they attend?
Yes, Mr. Kane, the committee has recommended that we work with some of our committee members that work with Macomb Community College and Oakland University. And so as long as the board's okay with it, we'll first reach out to that and the members of the diversity committee and see if we can find someone to coordinate for that September 30th meeting.
That'll be fine. I'll make a motion to receive and file.
So moved. Support.
Okay. So then you'll make that contact. Good. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cannon, there is,
Yeah, I mean, aren't we adopting the resolution?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, so receive and file.
And adopt the resolution.
Okay, got it. Okay.
and then I didn't know if there was a member of the Cultural Diversity Committee. Did you want to come up and speak on this issue, or? Here, can you read that?
Okay, I know. Good. If you can see me, I'm over here. I'm Lisa Valerio now. I'm one of the committee members of the Cultural Diversity Committee. I'd like to thank my committee members for bringing up this awareness for deaf culture, and also for the board here to be considering it and voting on it. It's very important that we have an outreach to the deaf community and let them know that there is someone listening to them and wanting to learn. And so,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Very good. Roll call.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 2, Fire Prevention Safety Week proclamation.
Dear board members, on behalf of the citizens and visitors to our township, I am respectfully requesting that the Fire Prevention Safety Week proclamation be placed on the September 9th, 2019 agenda. This coincides with the National Fire Protection Association's annual program guidelines. They have adopted this year's theme as Not Every Hero Wears a Cape. Plan and practice your escape. with Fire Prevention Week from October 6th to the 12th, 2019. In accordance with the NFPA safety program, please announce that the Clinton Township Fire Department has designated Saturday, October 12th, 2019, to hold our annual open house. We hereby invite the public to our event. There is no fee to attend. It will run from 12 noon until 3 p.m. at Fire Station Number 4 headquarters, which is located at 42601 Romeo Plank Road. Sincerely, Joseph Felton, Fire Marshal.
Thank you.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 3, appointment to the Planning Commission.
Dear board members, there is one vacant partial term up for appointment on the Planning Commission. The partial term will expire on November 30th, 2020. This appointment falls under the jurisdiction of the Township Supervisor and is subject to approval by the Township Board. Douglas Curd, Michael Licavalli, and Paul Zook have submitted applicants that have previously been submitted for your review. It would be appropriate to make the necessary appointments at this time. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Stephanie Middlestad, Administrative Assistant.
Thank you. We have 3 very qualified applicants, but my motion will be to appoint Douglas Curd to this position.
I'll support that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 4 is appointment to the Compensation Commission.
Dear board members, there is one term up for appointment on the Compensation Commission for elected officials. This is a 5-year term to expire on August 14th, 2024. One application has been received from Catherine Voss, which were previously sent to you for your review. This appointment falls under the jurisdiction of the Township Supervisor and is subject to the approval of the Township Board. It would be appropriate to make the necessary appointments at this time. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Stephanie Middlestad, Administrative Assistant.
Thank you. My motion will be to appoint Catherine Voss to the reappointment.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Just to quickly, I just want to remind the board and the public that I'll be voting no on this appointment because I voted no on the creation of this commission. It's not my belief that we need a committee or a commission to set the pay for elected officials. I believe that's our responsibility, and so I'll be voting no on the appointment for that sole reason. Thank you.
Hey, I'd like you to sit with me someday and tell me the way you think you'd like to try to do it. A roll call, please.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
No.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 5 is the introduction of applicant for the Cultural Diversity Committee.
Dear board members, there are 2 open terms on the Cultural Diversity Committee. Both terms will expire on November 30th, 2020. One application was received from Ms. Stephanie Garza for appointment to the Cultural Diversity Committee, which are attached for your review. Per the policy guidelines, an invitation has been extended to all applicants to attend the September 9th, 2019 board meeting, in which they will be provided an opportunity to introduce themselves to the Board of Trustees, whereby each being given a 3-minute time limit in which to do so. Thank you, Stephanie Middlestad, Administrative Assistant.
Is Ms. Garza here this evening, and does she wish to speak? It would be my recommendation, we have 2 openings. We have 1 applicant that we should appoint her to the position this week and let her get started.
I'm good with that.
I'll entertain that motion.
I'll
So
make a
moved.
motion.
So moved by
Support.
Mr. Gilliam, supported by Mrs. West. Thank you. Roll
I'm
call.
sorry, moved by
Motion
you.
Mr.
I thought it was
Gilliam,
moved by
supported
you.
by Mrs. West. Roll
Okay.
call, please.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
thank you. And then we have the same thing with the Conservation Committee, introduction of applicants, item 6.
There are 2 partial terms to expire November 30th, 2020. Mr. Matthew Toss has submitted an application for appointment to the Conservation Committee, and it is attached for your review. No other applications were received.
There are 3 open terms and 1 applicant. It would be, again, my recommendation that we appoint
Was the
Mr.
person here?
Toss. Pardon me?
Is the person here?
If he's here, if he wishes to speak, he's welcome to.
Matthew Toss?
Anyone?
And I would recommend that we appoint him this evening.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 7 is transfer ownership and location of a Class C and SDM liquor license.
Dear Board members, applicant Detroit Acts East LLC, located at 17420 Hall Road, store number 151, Clinton Township, Michigan 48038, has successfully fulfilled the requirements per the Building Department and Fire Department, as well as the police background check and payment of the application fees necessary to acquire a liquor license transfer. Based on this fulfillment of requirements, Detroit Acts East LLC requests approval conditional upon certificate of occupancy from this honorable board. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer, Clerk.
And this is a new business going into the mall at Partridge Creek. I don't know what unit they're going in.
They are here. If they could come up and speak to their request, that would be helpful.
We've heard nice things about your business, though.
Oh, terrific. Thank you. We're very proud of what we've, of our business operations. We've been operating in Ferndale for a few years now.
Good.
I'm excited to come to Partridge Creek.
Perfect. Can we get your name and
Sure,
address
my
for the
name is
record?
Brian Siegel, and my address is 531 Bloomfield Court, Birmingham, Michigan.
And my name is Jeff Kretschmer.
Oh, they're gonna
It's
be
spelled
black.
Geoff. A lot of consonants in the second name. Kretchmer.
They're going to be a black.
And my address is 25300 Parkwood Drive in Huntington.
Very good.
I'm Jessica Hallmark of the law firm of Atkinson, Need Allen, and Rentrop here on behalf of the applicants, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just didn't know what unit you were in. Are you in the old,
Blackfin, is that what you're taking?
No, we are across from, well, it was a Forever 21. We're adjacent to the Cooper's Hawk, like on the, just on the far side of Cooper's
Yeah,
Hawk, and
okay.
across from Bar Louie.
Yeah.
I think it's 301, but I'm not positive. We can look it up if that's necessary.
thank you.
And if no one else is going to, I'm going to toss it out there if I can. Alcohol and axe throwing. So I'm sure people are out there thinking it, and so you guys have experience. You have other locations. You've been doing this for a long time. So just kind of speak to that liability, you know, those types of things, okay?
So I think it's a very common question. It's a very rational one.
Yeah.
It turns out, because I'm an attorney, when we visited, we had the same concerns. When we started out, there were maybe 15 in the United States. There's now about 150 in the United States. And the activity has proven to be safer than golf, safer than going to a softball game or a softball league or any other activity, including ones where alcohol are served. And that's because every throw is monitored by an axe master who's trained in tips. And while people can have a drink outside the lanes, these people are trained to observe their behavior. And statistically, I think we've had, 2.5 million throws at our facility. Anybody here who comes and does it, we'd invite you to come. You'll see intuitively why it's a very, very safe activity.
Yep. I know that Mr. Aragona had an outing or whatever there. Or is
No.
this the same place, or?
No, this is a different one.
Oh, okay, all right.
We
I wasn't able
currently-
to attend that, but
Yeah.
it's not that I wouldn't try it, but
I think you'd enjoy it. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you would.
Yeah,
Okay.
we actually have another axe throwing place here in Clinton Township.
Okay.
That place does not have a liquor license, though. That is simply
Okay.
for the sport, and I can understand your concern about throwing and having a drink. But I've actually been to your location in Ferndale. It was a lot of fun. You guys do really keep it safe. And actually, there's one of the managers there that I was bending his ear and trying to convince him to Clinton Township. So apparently it paid off 2 years later, but
I think you're going to
happy to have you.
be very proud to have us in your township. Ferndale is a very engaged community, and we were appointed Executives of the Year this year. They very much appreciate what we've added to the community and the kind of interactive approach we take to community life. So we would expect to do the same here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
support.
Supported by Mr. Keys. When do you plan to open?
Our hope is to be open middle of November, but the construction process out there has proven slower than we'd like. So we're gonna really try and stay on track to that, but it's possible we'll open later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just as a reminder, this is contingent, for approval, it's contingent upon getting their certificate of occupancy.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
thank you.
Good
Welcome
luck.
to the
Appreciate
community.
your support.
Thank you.
Item 8 is also a transfer and location of Class C liquor license
Dear
and
Board,
outdoor service area permit.
Dear Board members, applicant Naked Burger LLC, located at 43203 Garfield Road, Clinton Township, Michigan, 48038, has successfully fulfilled the requirements for the Building Department and Fire Department, as well as the police background check and payment of the application fees necessary to acquire liquor license transfer. Based on this fulfillment of requirements, Naked Burger LLC requests approval based on approval conditional upon C of O of this honorable board. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer, Clerk.
Thank
And this
you.
is the same thing, Mr. Cannon, if I may, where it's not built out yet, but the appropriate departments did the background checks and so on, and it will be approved based on certificate of
And
occupancy.
their location is on Garfield, next to, actually behind Olga's.
Oh.
So it will be another nice addition. Is there anyone here from?
Jessica Hallmark again on
You're
behalf
pulling
of the
double duty.
applicants who are here, gentlemen. So I have with me Goran Dimick and Brandon Georges, and they are the owners of Naked Burger, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'll open it up to the board. Mr. Gilliam?
So give us a sense as to what you're trying to do in Clinton Township, what you're planning to offer.
Well, I've lived here for the last over 10 years now, and I feel like we need more, like, just to add on to the food scene in this area. So it's gonna be like gourmet burgers. We're gonna have alcohol, we're gonna have cocktails and stuff like that, for draft beer. So it's just gonna be another addition to the Macomb area, you know, with good food.
Well, that's a great corner for food.
Yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
really, it is. But in that location, there's been several businesses, and are you making changes to the building?
Right.
So what's going to be
The whole
the
concept is
surroundings?
completely different.
Okay.
This is a brand-new concept with, you know, it, like the places that were there before were, there was, I think, a barbecue place, and then there was a chicken tenders place. Those were more, in a sense, fast food type scenarios. Mine's going to be more sit down, enjoy a really good meal. It's going to be more higher quality service, kind of like what you would get in a restaurant downtown Detroit nowadays, and Royal Oak in Birmingham, and those kind of things. That's the kind of atmosphere we want to have.
Okay. And what, have you been in the restaurant business? Do you
Yes.
own other restaurants? Do you?
I've worked in the restaurant business 13 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's been in the liquor industry.
Okay.
Yeah, I know I'm young, but I've been.
Well, I didn't want to say that because that
Don't let 'em
would
hold
be
that
sort of
against you.
somewhat discriminatory. But you know,
Yeah.
the fact is, you look like young guys, and you're
Yeah.
being aggressive and starting a business, and we want to encourage that. But also want to make sure that you prepared for this responsibility of taking on, you know, serving alcohol. It's
Sure, for sure.
There's a lot of state regulations. The power's really out of our hands. The state has pulled all of that back, but the fact is, we do have to approve it. And
Sure.
so,
Yeah, we actually just had the meeting about a week and a half ago with the investigator for liquor control, and she mentioned to us that there's, you know, certain guidelines, and that they're going to be, you know, you're not supposed to, like, you know, you're not supposed to serve underage. You're supposed to cut people off. That, you know, there's a lot of those things. It's just about being responsible and having the staff know that needs to be the standard, to not, you know, break the rules in a sense. Yeah.
well, I wish you much success.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Pearl?
Yeah, you're requesting a entertainment permit?
We're thinking about one day a week, on a weekend, having like a little guitarist playing in the corner, like, in a sense, live music, but not DJs or actual
Like legit.
live bands.
All right. Do we need-
That's still up for in the air if we're gonna do that.
So we're just doing the transfer right now, the license.
Kim?
Is that right?
Yes, no, it's
This
both.
is just, oh.
Yeah, no, it is both. Actually, we're doing both, so there's an outdoor activity also, so request for the outdoor activity. So there was 3 actually requests, there's a permit for the entertainment and $300 for the outdoor service area permit, and then, as it says in the caption, as well as the transfer.
So do we have to specify times and days on this?
I think it would have to comply with whatever ordinances, that we have already in place.
Jack, is that sufficient?
Yes, they'd have to be compliant with our ordinances. If you have concerns about specific hours and so on, I mean, that's another issue for consideration, but at this point,
No,
I don't
it's
believe
not.
that there's been any paperwork submitted with.
Yes, yes. They filled out the permit? Is that what you're asking?
No.
We would.
I said that, what I was going to say, I don't think there's been any paperwork submitted regarding any proposed hours or limitations of hours. Our ordinance does have some requirements within it with respect to noise and so forth.
We do, so we
And I
do
believe
have.
they're set back pretty far from the surrounding, I think if you look at that facility, there's already a Class C licensed facility, I think, to the, what would be the east.
Ernie's.
Ernie's.
Right.
Yep.
And then, so, I mean, I don't think they really are within a close location to any surrounding residential. I don't think what I was trying to say is I don't think any specific analysis has been done with regard to hours.
We had, so the application did include proposed hours, which are right now Monday through Thursday from noon to midnight, Friday and Saturday from noon to 2 a.m., and Sunday from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. But the hours would be subject to change based on customer demand.
Is that-
Excuse me, just, may I?
Does that fit our ordinances?
May I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. Are those the hours of the business or the hours of the entertainment that you just listed?
Those are the hours of the business.
Okay.
We've been restrictive with the entertainment permits in the past, largely because locations have been close to residential. And so I'm envisioning this corner, and I can't find the nearest resident to that.
There is a.
It would be well across Garfield, I would presume.
If are you familiar with J Baldwin's? Or
Yes.
Testabara?
Yes.
Okay, so on Saturdays, they have a guitarist that comes in there, plays and sings on a microphone. That's only on Saturdays. That would be the type of thing where it would be, I think, maybe at night, dinner time, where the guy would come in and do that thing. He would just be playing guitar and singing. Again, that's whether we're going to do it or not. We still have to find someone that would do it, or whether it makes sense.
So if we were to propose restricting entertainment to up to, say, 10 o'clock on weeknights and 11 or midnight on weekends, you wouldn't have any issue with that?
Well, I don't think we're even going to do weekdays at all. It just
Okay.
might just be on a Saturday, just to make it like a thing where people come out Saturday for,
Right.
take a date to the restaurant. We have a guy singing with a guitar, like.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So that'd be like one of those things.
Midnight
probably.
And it's probably not worth it to pay somebody to do entertainment past a certain hour. But
Yeah.
what we're talking about here is setting the parameters
Yeah, yeah.
to say it's not permissible after this time.
I think until midnight would probably be the latest he would be there on a Saturday, on a weekend. Yeah, because we close at 2 on a weekend. Midnight is when we want to start shutting down things.
Can you introduce the topic? I don't know if you wanted.
I'll make a motion to approve the liquor license transfer and the issuance of the entertainment license based on the hours that you've described.
Well, I said either or, so what do you want to do on weekends?
Till midnight's okay?
Yeah.
Till midnight on weekends.
But let's make sure the record's clear. By weekend, you're referring to Friday night and Saturday night?
Yeah, I would give them that.
Yes.
I don't want to unclear.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
right.
But we're thinking we're a work week and they're thinking bar work week, right?
Yeah.
Mrs. Meltzer, wasn't there a third request?
There is for outdoor services area.
Right. On here, yeah.
Can you say that again?
It's
Outdoor services area.
outdoor activity, and they did pay the fee for that as well.
We don't have a site plan,
Well, it would be contingent upon that approval.
so I'll
As we
include
said.
that approval outside.
Yeah, all
the-
three of these are contingent
Yeah,
upon the
contingent on
C of O.
approval of site plan. And C of O.
I'll support the motion.
Who's approving the site plan? The planning department?
That comes to us.
Building
And
department.
then we
Oh, So we're going to get that
Yep.
again here? Okay. Right.
Everyone through with their questions? Anyone in the community wish to speak? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Mrs. Meltzer, I know that we have deleted item 9, but I can tell you that a lot of us are looking forward to the Mi Pueblo coming to the old Pogos on Groesbeck. Is there a problem?
Well, yeah, when I contacted the state today, they hadn't issued it from the state level, and in addition to that, not only do they want a Class C license, they want an SDM license, so they still have yet to apply for that. So we'll just do it all at once. Our next board meeting is 3 weeks from today, not 2 weeks like it normally is, and that's no issue, they said.
So they're still proceeding ahead?
Oh, yeah, should not even be a blip on your radar.
It's all good news. It looks like
is good.
3 very outstanding restaurants coming to the community. So item 10, proposed special land use for a Marathon gas station on North Gratiot.
This commission has held public hearing on the proposal for special land use being a gas station in the B3 General Business District on the subject property located at the northeast corner of Gratiot and Sandpiper, and has made review of a site plan for Marathon Gas Station, formerly Clark Gas Station Convenience Store. We hereby make recommendation for approval of the special land use to permit development of a gas station in the B3 district and of the site plan as stamped and dated August 22nd, 2019. This action was voted on and approved by unanimous vote, and a copy of the notice of the August 22nd, 2019 public hearing containing legal description and a sketch of the location and of the land in question is attached for your information and file. This matter was petitioned by Mr. Thayer Asaf Enterprise, Inc., 43600 Gratiot Avenue, Clinton Township, Michigan, 48036, as represented by Mr. Nasser Kucher, NC Designers and Contracting, Inc., 3241 South Telegraph Road, Dearborn, Michigan, 48124. We submit this proposal for consideration and would appreciate advisement of your determination. Sincerely, Catherine Cherry, Secretary for the Clinton Township Planning Commission.
Thank you. This looks like a very nice change. It's a 3,100 square foot building, replacing a very old dilapidated building.
The petitioner is here if he wants to say anything.
Welcome. Could we get your name, please?
Good evening. My name is Nasser Shukair from NC Designers and Contracting. I'm the architect who's doing this project for Mr. Asaf.
Very good.
And my address is 3241 North South Telegraph, Dearborn, 48124.
You intend to make it a party store type business also?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's what I understood.
I just got approved for the beer and wine license. I just have to go through the second phase with the city. I'm just waiting on the actual license before I.
Very good. Thank you.
So we have not, we have not received that notice from the state yet, but you can go ahead and apply for that if you want to.
Yeah, I got the paperwork on my desk for the city.
Okay,
I'm just waiting for them to do their due diligence and
Yes.
before I do any, obviously, business.
okay.
Mr. Aragona?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. You redid the building, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The one thing that I think we on the Planning Commission were very happy to hear is, this isn't simply just lipstick on a pig, you redid it, but you also, if I'm not mistaken, got new tanks for the gas. How many years ago?
About 3 years ago.
Okay, so there's only 3 years old. I know that quite a few places around Michigan have had problems with leaky underground storage tanks. There's been different cleanup efforts from the state, but I was just very happy to hear that there's nothing going on underground that's going to affect that area. So thank you for that. Thanks for being here.
All clear.
Further comments or questions?
I'll just add if I can, I appreciate the landscape plan. I'm seeing nice screening, I'm seeing good use of trees and shrubs, and so not something we see at gas stations. It's good to see.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very good. Floor is open for a motion.
Move to approve.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
You're all set. Thank you. Item 11 is reposting of open committee positions.
Dear board members, there are currently various committee openings that have not received applications. Historical Commission for 1 partial term, Cultural Diversity for 1 term, and the Conservation Committee for 2 partial terms. It would be appropriate at this time to repost the openings in accordance to the policy guidelines for committees, and thank you for your attention to this matter. Stephanie Middlestat, Administrative Assistant.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 12 is request to schedule a public hearing to adopt the annual street lighting resolution.
Dear board members, the Department of Assessing respectfully requests the board to schedule a public hearing for the purpose of adjusting and adopting the annual street lighting resolution for the township. Please schedule the public hearing for the September 30th, 2019 regular board meeting. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Respectfully submitted, James Elrod, Assessor.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
So that'll be on the September 30th agenda. Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
And item 13, we have a presentation of our audited financial statements. Mr. Harrington.
Good evening, Mr. Cannon and board.
Good evening.
Dave Harrington from Plant Moran. We're here tonight to present the financial highlights of your March 31st, 2019 financial statement audit. And what we'd like to do is, as we've done in the past, we have some slides that we will go through on the financial highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions related to the slides. And I'm going to start off with my team that did 90% of the work, Steve Bondar, and then Ali Hijazi, who worked very closely with finance, treasury, Mary, various departments to make sure this audit went very smoothly, and we appreciate the professionalism. The only thing I get to do, which I get to do every year because of the quality of the departments here, is indicate you have an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get. Oh, I'm supposed to hit a button. Oh, everybody has a job. I could have probably handled that one. Unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you get, it really says, and not only are the numbers good, but throughout the year we test this, and you are often making decisions on budgets and spending decisions and revenue decisions, and the information you get from finance is accurate throughout the year, not just once a year. And that's a blue chip department that can do that and provide you that type of information so you can make accurate decisions, because too often you're making decisions with old information or information that isn't current. So in addition to it being right at year end, it's right throughout the year. So with that, Steve, I'll have you kick it off.
All right. Thank you. As Dave mentioned, my name is Steve Bondar. I'm the manager on the Township's audit engagement. I'm going to quickly cover a few slides of select financial information that has been pulled from the Township's audited financial statements. And then I'll turn it over to the other manager on the job, my colleague, Ali Hijazi, who will cover some additional financial information related to the water and sewer fund and post-employment obligations. The slides you're going to see here today generally are going to present 6 years of financial information for various funds of the township. Included are 2 years of historical information. It will also include the 2020 budget year and then projected years from 2021 through 2023. So our first slide here is going to start off with the general fund, specifically revenue-related activity. Total revenue for the general fund in 2018 was approximately $17.9 million, and this is increasing to $18.3 million in the projected 2023 fiscal year. This increase is primarily driven by inflationary growth in property taxes, and growth in this area is typically limited by state statutes, namely Proposal A and Headley. On our next slide, we have expenditures for the general fund. Expenditures in 2018 were $17.6 million, increasing to $20.9 million in 2023. There are a few things to note on this slide. First, the 2020 budget year is projecting elevated expenditures of $23.1 million. This increase is due to budgeted transfers out of the general fund for capital projects Namely, these are improvements being made at Normandy and George Parks. A portion of these transfers relate to a required match on grant funds being utilized to cover the expenditures of these projects. The other item to note is the manner in which the projections were developed by management. Management's going to build out the projected years conservatively, meaning things like full employment are assumed in these expenditure numbers. And as a result, as often does, actual results may vary from the projections. And that's just something to keep in mind when comparing the projected amounts to the actual historical results. Next slide, we have general fund balance. Fund balance was $23.1 million in 2018, and it's projected to decrease to $11.2 million in 2023. The decrease is a result of fund balance being utilized for various capital projects, deferred maintenance costs, and other post-employment obligations. And one thing to mention here is that although a decrease is projected, projected fund balance in 2023 is still healthy as a percentage of projected expenditures during that same time period. Next slide, we're going to move into the police fund. Police fund revenue. Police fund revenue was $21 million in 2018, and this is projected to increase to $24.3 in 2023. As with the general fund, this increase is primarily driven by inflationary increases in property tax collections. Our next slide is police fund expenditures. Expenditures were $20.8 million in 2018, and this is increasing to $24.2 million in the projected 2023 year. As with the general fund, management's projections reflect full employment and other conservative factors. Here we have police fund balance, relatively stable from approximately $32.3 million in 2018 to $33.9 million in 2023. One item to note on this slide is the available fund balance line. This line helps to reflect a more true representation of ongoing fund balance given the timing of property tax collections. As property taxes are collected prior to year end and intended to cover expenditures for the following year, fund balance can appear to be higher than it truly is. Said another way, part of fund balance at year end is already spoken for in terms of covering next year's expenditures. So this line just represents that difference in timing. Moving on to fire fund revenue. Revenue was $16.8 million in 2018, projected to increase to $19.5 million in 2023, again, driven primarily by inflationary increases in property taxes. And fire fund expenditures, $17.1 million in 2018, projected to increase to $19 million in 2023. And this slide is also going to reflect a recurring transfer to the fire vehicle and equipment replacement fund for various equipment purchases during the projected years. And finally here we have fire fund balance, approximately $18.8 million in 2018, and it's expected to stay relatively consistent at $18.8 million in 2023. And again, we have the line here showing available fund balance to just reflect that difference between the year end and the timing of property tax collections. And with that, I will turn it over to Ali to talk water and sewer and post-employment.
Thanks, Steve. So I'm just going to cover the water and sewer fund and then get into some of the pension and retiree health care numbers that we have to report this year. So this first slide shows the last 2 years of water and sewer fund revenue along with the 2020 budget. So this year in 2019, total water and sewer fund revenue was about $46.2 million. And if you look at, the operating line is, a big factor in that is water usage, which obviously is dependent on the weather and other things. You see non-operating revenue increase from about $1,044,000 to $1,004,000. That was primarily driven by a SAW grant that the township received that's reflected in the fiscal year 19 numbers, along with increased interest income on cash balances. This is the other side of the equation, water and sewer fund expenditures. So in 2018, $43.1 million, 2019 was $38.9 million, and it's a little under $40 million projected in the 2020 budget. So there's about a $4.5 million decrease from 2018 to 2019. The primary driver there is repairs and maintenance expenditures that the township had to pay for in 2018 related to the sinkhole. That was about $5.5 million. That's reflected in that number. So that did not recur, obviously, in 2019, which is part of the reason for the decline. The other item we'll point out on this slide is that bottom column. So for GAAP accounting rules, one of the things that isn't necessarily reflected in the expense numbers is how much just cash outlay is being used for paying principal on debt and capital. So we just put those numbers up there in terms of the cash flow needs for this fund for each of the respective years, which in 2018 was $15.4 million and $10.6 million in 2019, just to provide additional commentary on the use of those dollars. One of the other items we talk about each year here, because we think it's helpful to see visually, is how much debt the water and sewer fund is currently carrying and what type of debt it is. So this slide shows the beginning of year balance of debt broken down between what was township issued versus what was county drain issued, the net additions or reductions in each category, and the ending balance. So there was about $61.2 million of total debt in the water and sewer fund at the end of the year. About $45.3 million of that is county drain issued. So it relates to the improvement of the township's water and sewer system, but it wasn't debt that was approved and issued by the township board. It was done at the county level, but the township's water and sewer fund is responsible for paying that debt. And then shifting gears to pension and retiree health care. So Steve covered the kind of major governmental funds and that are all on solid financial ground. This slide really represents one of the more significant financial challenges that the township is facing and has been working to address. This shows the funding levels using the accounting basis for the general employees pension plan, the fire and police pension plan, and the township retiree health care plan. So the first column, the planned fiduciary net position, that's the assets that have been set aside for funding those obligations. The total liability is the actuary's calculation of what the total liability is outstanding related to benefits that have been earned as of the end of the year. And then the last column shows the unfunded liability. So the total liability is $402 million for all three plans combined, and the unfunded liability is $185 million. So a couple thoughts on this slide. One is, obviously the fact that the township has set aside $217 million is no small feat to get there. The township has always made its actuarially required contribution for the pension plans and has been funding retiree health care for a number of years. Additionally, to the township's credit, for the general employees plan and the retiree health care plan, a few years ago you've adopted in your budget to contribute above and beyond just the actuarially required contribution. You're doubling your contribution for retiree health care and making additional contributions for general employees pension. So really and as far as fire and police pension goes, it's unfunded by $93 million under the measurements that are used for the accounting for the financial statements. And I know that currently the Fire and Police Pension Board is looking at, how are we funding that liability? Are we using the right assumptions? Are we using the right actuarial methods in order to prove this over time? So there's some positives here in terms of making your contribution, and there are some actions that are being taken to increase the funding level. But even with the progress that has been made to date, there's no short-term solution to this funding problem. So it's a long road that it'll take to be able to fund these obligations. So staying the course, remaining disciplined, and continue to look at your assumptions so you have an accurate measure of what the total liability is really critical. And this is a common, unfunded liabilities are a common issue in Southeast Michigan. I'd say especially on retiree health care, there's not many communities that have set aside the dollars that you have for your liability. So again, kudos to the board for making the decisions to get to that point but obviously got to keep your eye on the ball going forward to make sure you get that funding level closer to, 100% where you want to be long-term. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions that you have on anything in the slides or any other questions related to the audit.
Okay, we'll start with the Township Board, and then we'll go to the community. I've been through the presentation is excellent, and our staff is fabulous. We know that. Thank you. Mr. Gillihan?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So one of the things that I always like to point out, because this is one of the things we've tried to do. We've tried to communicate with people and what are the sources of revenue coming in? Where is the money coming in? Where is it going? And so this report is a great sort of way to do that in a public setting. So if we look at page 1, the general fund revenue, we see that there's a lot of sources, a variety of sources, but that blue line there is the property tax that comes in to support the general fund, right? So the chart that I have basically shows, when the township gets its money off the December collection, there's the red bar, the blue bar, and then the yellow sliver, and the yellow sliver is the general fund. The actual general fund, everything that's not water and sewer and not police and fire, we do out of that yellow sliver, but so from the actual residents. But then there's a revenue sharing, which is a state function, and that actually brings in more than the property tax collections. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if we see, so the property taxes are roughly $2.5 million to support the general fund. And then if we go to the police fund, the police fund shows the revenue, which is on page 4. That is all property tax supported, right?
Yes.
For the most part.
For the most part.
Yep, right. And then the same would be true with the fire, right?
Right.
Okay. And so it's just one of those things that I like to point out and make sure we get that confirmed for the residents, because this is the commitment that they've done when they stepped up and voted for the millages to support those departments.
Yep.
Because they said these are the services that we believe are important. All of the other things and the really discretionary things that we're deciding on are largely general fund issues, and that's that part that's the $2.5 million of our overall budget. So I like to point that out. The county drain debt is another sort of issue going from, let's see, where's that at? Again, page 12. So we have to maintain a water and sewer system, but that water and sewer system has to feed into the county system. And so when the county has problems in their system, we wind up being part of the communities that wind up having to pay into that. And that's reflected in what we see here with the jump from the county drain debt service. No. Which one am I looking at here? Ali, help me out.
So the debt service schedule that has the one that I have up there, if you would have looked at that last year, you would have seen and I don't remember the exact number, but a big increase in the county drain issued debt for the township's portion of the county debt related to repairing the sinkhole, which I think is illustrating the point that you're saying is that, hey, when there's problems in the system, we've got to kick in, and years like that where you have a major capital need, I mean, that, even though you're paying down your $1 million a year on your township issued debt, you might pick up $6 or $7 or $8 million of county share, your share of the county debt that's got to be paid.
Okay.
So that all comes out of the same water and sewer revenue source.
Right, okay.
Is that
Yes,
fair?
that's the point I'm trying to make,
Yes.
and you're helping me get to the right pages. I appreciate that.
Glad I could do that.
So then legacy costs. So we have these years here that things have been pretty good, but the revenue that's coming in, the expenses are actually exceeding, but that's because we delayed so many of the capital expenditures. So now these budgets coming up here where we're actually spending more than what we're taking in, we're taking that money out of fund balance, but it's because of the capital expenditures and because of the long-term liability.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the point is, so a budget for your general fund or police department is looking at 1 year. And, you guys have been doing the 5-year projections for a long time, which is a best practice for finance departments. And what it allows you to do is to look out and say, okay, if we deploy some of this fund balance that we've set aside for this important project, to either improve services to the community or address capital, what does that do to our financial picture 5 years down the line so that you can kind of plan appropriately? So, Steve showed one of the slides where, the fund balance is declining by the 5th year, but that's planned and it's intentional. That's the reason you build up your fund balance, is so that you can have the flexibility to make those decisions long-term. So that doesn't mean that you can't dial things back if you need to, or there's some financial reason to do that. But the starting point is looking at that 5-year projection, saying, what do we want to accomplish? And what does that do to the financial picture, and then adjust accordingly.
And then even the fact that the township doesn't have a funding source for roads, we've been taking money out of our fund balance to then do what the county is now requiring of all townships, which is to take money out of their general fund to fund at a certain percentage. Even though there's no revenue source specifically defined for that, so that money's coming out of that yellow sliver, if you will, that small 2.8 in federal and state sources.
Right.
We're having to contribute. That's part of that capital expenditure that you're reflecting?
Yes, it's paying, so for roads, yes, you're paying that out of your general fund, which is funded by property taxes and state sources, which is, Steve mentioned it, property taxes, you can't really grow your property taxes beyond inflation without passing new millages. And then state sources is subject to, whatever they do with the state budget.
Right.
The statutory portion of that, so.
But I'd like to point that out, because basically what we're being told now is that you want to do anything, any road, the county is now telling us that we have to come up with a certain percentage of match, and they tried to say it was 50%, but we're not turning farm fields into subdivisions here. There's not a steady stream of new money flowing into Clinton Township, so we really need to, be able to try to use whatever dollars we can to pull as much money from the county as we can, but the fact is, we're limited in that regard.
Yes, because of the community, the makeup of the community, and, you don't have the same kind of growth that you have on the far north side of, the county. So you've got to be very judicious in how you use the dollars that are available to address these, very significant capital needs.
Okay. So you mentioned that the pension and retiree healthcare funding, this is a new chart. This is new this year. This is a new requirement that we're having to include in?
No, in the graph package, this chart has been in here. So every year we kind of
It's been in
talk
here,
about it.
but we're required to talk about it now. Is that what you're suggesting?
We're required to report it, yes.
Yes. So we've been reporting it, but now we're required to report it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, long-term here, so this is one of the things that we saw in government, is that you've got, I saw a chart back in the 1980s, you had 5 employees for every retiree. And now, as folks are living longer, you have more like 1-to-1.
Sure.
Some are actually negative, right?
Yeah.
So there's only 2 ways to really change that dynamic, and that is get better returns or put more money in,
Essentially, yep.
right? Well, I guess, or
changing benefits.
change the benefit
Right,
package, right?
right.
So for the general employees, we're part of the state retirement system, right?
Yes, you're in MERS, yep.
So the actuarial assumptions, because this is based on assumptions, because it's projecting out.
That's right.
Right? So because it's projecting out, you're having to assume, how long are people living? What are they going to be able to collect at the time? And so there's all these different sets of assumptions. Which one is this based on?
Well, they all factor into these numbers, but in terms of, so mortality, let's just take that one.
Okay.
These are long-term assumptions, so I think what just kind of across the board has happened is, every year you get results compared to assumption, and if they don't exactly hit the assumption or they're a little worse, it's like, well, it's a long-term assumption. So many plans, including MERS, a few years ago would have said, all right, we've had a number of years where the experience has not been lining up to the assumptions, maybe we should change the assumption. So when everybody updated the mortality tables, which show that people are living longer, all the liabilities increased, including for the township. So I think that this is a general trend among pension plans and retiree healthcare plans, that as assumptions have been updated over the last few years, the funding levels have declined.
Okay.
So that is not uncommon. It's just these are the numbers specific to your community.
Okay, so with these funding levels, and then, of course, the unfunded liability, where would you say the township is in relation to communities our size throughout the state?
So I would say for retiree healthcare, you are on average ahead of the game. For general employees and fire and police pension, you're probably, kind of in the middle of the pack. And so I think that because the state constitution requires that everybody makes their pension contribution, there aren't plans that aren't setting aside anything for pension generally, right? So, I think the township is doing all the right things. As far as the contributions you're making today for general employees and for retiree healthcare, I don't know of any other communities that are really doing that in a meaningful way. So I think your current actions that you're taking are, absolutely the right things to do, and not very many communities are doing that. But it takes a long time to make a meaningful difference in those funding percentages, and that's what you're seeing.
But we've seen us make significant progress over time by making the double contributions.
Yeah, for retiree healthcare, and yes, exactly. You're offsetting the assumption. Well, the assumption went against us, right? So it reduces our funding liability, but we're contributing. So it's kind of going both ways, right? So you're fighting against the tailwinds.
I'll give you a break.
Okay.
The only thing
Thanks,
I'll be the Grim Reaper. The only thing I'd caution is, as these liabilities get bigger, you should expect that the annual required contribution will get bigger. So it will be a bigger portion of your general fund, police, fire, water and sewer fund budget. All those funds that have employees, significant employees, are going to have to kick in more money of their total that they normally bring in to cover just the annual required contribution. So we don't know those numbers 10 years from now, but they're going to be bigger than they are today.
Right.
And so we need to be planning for that. That's why these 5-year projections are so strategic. So Ali said it perfectly. The funds are in excellent shape, and we have good forecasts in front of us, but we have this dark cloud that we have to watch very closely.
Yeah. But that's facing pretty much every local community that's out there.
It is. I have seen no white knight coming in to save any local community other than maybe a bankruptcy, which we don't want to go there. So you literally have to take care. It's on you.
So it's on this board to make sure that we plan for
that's the
that.
point. That's the point. You can't just sort of say, well, everybody else is doing it. Well, as our parents used to say, if everybody else is doing it, should we do it? So I'll use the best.
The fact is, not everybody's doing it, but we are doing it.
Your retiree health care, no one was doing double contributions. You were the only ones doing it. And so if you were doing what everybody else did, you wouldn't be in that good a shape. So you have a history of doing doing the right thing and doing the smart thing long term. And this is the thing we've had a lot of conversations with members of your board, with the police and fire board. This is an important one to watch as long as you're on this board.
Okay. And this is the thing I always close on when you guys do this ever since I've been here, and that is, and it's a point that Steve mentioned, but I always like to highlight it, and that is the fact that there's two things that are affecting really revenue that's coming into the township: Proposal A and Headley. And they're basically those two acts, one put in place by the voters of the state of Michigan back in 1994 that says property taxes can only increase 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever's less.
Yep.
And then the Headley, and Headley basically says as you grow, you roll the rate back. So in other words, if we do 1 mil for general fund, as we grow, that 1 mil becomes whatever it is now, which I think is like 0.82? Okay, yeah. So those two things are really constricting new revenue flowing into the community.
That is absolutely the case. So because of that, that's why this board has in the past done additional police and fire special assessments to make sure you can maintain that level of service.
And what we told people at the time is we're not going to get back to where we were in the heyday, but we're going to try to get to what we think are manageable and levels to meet the service needs.
Yeah, it's a tightrope.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I appreciate you, gentlemen, and the finance department for the work they do.
Mr. Pearl?
Yeah, I just want to thank the Finance Department, Don and Mary, for what you're doing, your staff. Thank you. It's very important to get these figures every year. We went through some tough times, went through a lot of study meetings with Mr. Harrington and group and our Finance Department to get through what we had to get through. And I appreciate the fact that we can count on these figures every day being right, and we know how to plan ahead. And thank you for your auditing services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments?
Yes, to augment what the treasurer said, we've been lucky enough to get the full rate of inflation increase every year, plus all the new construction, any house that sells, the cap comes off. So to say that, and the residents didn't necessarily get the full rate of inflation and pay raises. So you have to realize the township is getting much more money than the average resident.
That is
But all-
that is
guaran-
incorrect.
Guaranteed the full rate of inflation.
Okay. You're certainly welcome to say it, but that is incorrect. The floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melser, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 14, request to approve proposed water and sewer rate setting methodology.
Chuck Belmore, Assistant Water and Sewer Superintendent, Mary Hine, Assistant Finance Director, and myself have been working with Plant Moran and the Budget Ways and Means Committee over the past year, reviewing our water and sewer rates, methodology, and structure. Attached is a copy of the Water and Sewer Fund Financial Forecast prepared by Plant Moran. Mr. Brian Kammeler, CPA from Plant Moran, will be at the board meeting to discuss the forecast. Based on the forecast and detailed discussions, we are recommending a change to the water and sewer rate structure. This is a more simplified rate structure that eliminates the minimum use requirement and various fixed monthly charges. The new structure still includes a monthly variable charge with no minimum usage requirement, and it has added a fixed monthly charge called a Readiness to Serve charge, or an RTS. The reason for the RTS charge is to pay for a portion of the administrative cost and capital needs of the system regardless of how much water is consumed by the customer. The RTS charge is tiered based on water meter size derived using the American Water Works Association specifications, which reflects the demand for service each customer places on the overall system. It is our recommendation to set the water and sewer rates starting for October usage, and it will reflect in the November bill as follows. I won't go into any detail about what those rates are. I'll let the presenter, Brian, do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak with you. And thank you, Mary, for that very concise letter which explains what I would have said in 10 minutes. So thank you for that. And everyone here thanks you for that. So we were hired last fall to do an analysis of the existing rates and offer some suggestions for items to consider for ways to make your rates simpler, easier for the customers to understand, easier for the township to administer, while at the same time maintaining the sense of fairness, which is legally required, and most importantly, provide the cash flow that you need to pay your bills, maintain your system, and provide water and sewer services to all of your customers. And so what we did was we built a model, and in fact, we built over the course of this project 5 separate models and weighed the pros and cons of each of them, because water and sewer rate setting at the highest level is very easy. It's simple algebra to try to figure out, here's what our costs are, here's how many units we're going to sell, here's how many customers we have, and do some algebra to figure out what we should charge. But the devil's really in the details, and it gets very complicated as you try to maintain a sense of fairness, as you try to project the usage of the system, how many units you're going to buy, how many units you're going to sell, and then factoring in the debt service that you already have and the capital needs that you're going to have in the future. And then it gets pretty complicated. Hence the 5 different models. And we wanted to see how these different assumptions that we use play out. How does it affect different classifications of customers, whether it is residential, the little old lady down the street, or a family of 4, or a commercial property. It all changes depending on how you change these assumptions. And where we ended up, which was the decision of the Ways and Means Committee and Mary and Finance having that input, because these are your rates. The end result, the one model that became Model Prime, is explained in this document, which I believe is in your packets. If you would like, I can go through and hit some of the highlights of the model that is described here. And then I'm happy to take questions during or after, whichever you prefer.
Brian, I'd like to have you go through and hit some of the highlights.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, on the front page, it says cash basis. So that is a distinction to make, because it could be done on a utility basis where you would factor in things like depreciation on your system. And we didn't do that. This model says, because it's the easiest way to understand it, how much cash needs to come in order to pay our bills going out, and at the same time, how much cash should we have in the bank to maintain a healthy or safe level of reserve. And I'll explain what those reserves are a little bit further through the report. I would like you to flip to page 2, if you would, where we cover some of the basic assumptions. Explains in the first bullet what those reserves are, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. We're talking about beginning modified working capital, which is that cash basis. We're not worried about the changes in receivables. We're not worried about the changes in payables. It's really based on how much cash are we accumulating and maintaining, and that amount goes up and down. And then some of the significant capital outlays that you have over the next 5 years. The estimate is $45 million of additional capital improvements that are required to your system in order to keep it running the way you need it to. In addition to dump trucks and a backhoe and a front-end loader, main replacements, sanitary sewer rehab projects, lift station maintenance, all the things that are necessary in order for water to get, clean water to get to the homes and dirty water to be removed and then eventually processed. On page 3, there is a table that shows over the past 6 years how much water you have purchased from DWSD and GLEWA, and then how much you've sold to your customers. And then at the bottom of the page, page 3, is a discussion about the reserves. How much should we have in the bank at any given time? There is a science to it. There's a methodology to it. Number one, you should have an operating reserve, because your customers pay you slower than you pay your vendors. So if you, we've set a 60-day reserve because you're billing on a monthly basis. So we know that it's going to take your customers on whole a longer time to pay you than you're going to pay your vendors. You're doing check runs every 2 weeks or more often to pay those vendors, so that's cash going out quickly. So we want to make sure in order to pay those vendors, we have 60 days of operations. You also want to have the next year's worth of debt service in the bank, because those are usually twice-a-year payments. It's a big ticket item to pay for, and so you fill up the bucket this year to pay for next year, and as soon as you make those payments, you have to fill the bucket back up again. And so at the end of the year, we want to have the next year's payment ready to go. The third is sometimes called the oops, something broke reserve. It's an emergency capital reserve, and we calculate that as 2% of the net book value of the capital assets in your system. Because if oops, something breaks, you have to have the ability to fix that immediately. You don't have time to bond for it. You know, for planned projects, yes, we're going to plan it for the next year and a half. We're going to go out for bonds if necessary. You can arrange financing. But if oops, something broke, you need to deal with it today. Which leads me to number 4, the planned capital replacement reserve at the top of page 4. So the planned capital replacement is those long-term things. We know that it's $1 million a mile to replace a pipe, or we know that this neighborhood is going to need additional resources because it's growing or it's aged. And so we've set aside, or we want to maintain, $6.5 million for water over a 5-year period, $9.1 million for sewer over a five-year period. Why those numbers? How do we come up with those? It's actually to maintain what you have presently. So the model says where we're at today is actually pretty good. It's stable. Other communities that I've worked with and done these, they've had to raise sewer rates 70% in a year because they haven't been maintaining their reserves. That's not the case here. You're in a good spot. We want to maintain it 5 years down the road. We don't want you to start to decline. We don't necessarily want to raise a bunch of capital either. So we're trying to ensure a stability, ensure and maintain the money that you have today. And then at the bottom of page 4 is a summary of what your current rates are. I mentioned simplifying. Mary mentioned simplifying the rates. So presently, there's all these different components to your rate. There's this, $3.29 per unit, but it's a minimum of 5 units per customer. There's this DWSD fixed fee of $4.31 a month. And then in sewer, there's 4 different charges every month, either fixed or variable, or per month or per unit cost. So altogether, any customer's bill has these 6 different charges. What does one charge pay for versus another charge? Once upon a time, there was an idea when these charges were implemented that if DWSD created a fixed component, then you created a fixed component to match it. But over time, it doesn't level out. And so our goal was to reduce the number of charges to make it a little cleaner and easier. And so we've done that, and that can be found on page 5. So the variable rate, I'm at the top of page 5, the variable rate for water goes up from $3.29 to $3.33, 1.2%, only 4 cents. Sewer goes from $6.39 to $6.49, an increase of 10 cents, 1.6%. Overall, for buying 1 unit of water and then the eventual cleaning of that water, 1.4% increase to the rate. Then below is the breakup of the readiness to serve charge. So the readiness to serve charge replaces all those other fixed charges. The readiness to serve charge, the idea behind it is whether you buy 1 drop of water or 1 million gallons of water, there are costs before you turn on the faucet, or there are costs to administer that service regardless of how much water you use. For example, sending a bill costs 1 stamp, regardless of the value of that bill. The people that have to read your meters, they don't care how much water that particular customer used. They have to do the same job. Likewise, there's a portion of the fixed cost, or excuse me, of the capital charges or capital costs of maintaining the system. Some of those, it doesn't much matter who you are or how much you use. There's still a fixed cost to any user. But those fixed costs, or the volume each user uses, places a certain burden on the system. It's harder on the system to service a 10-inch meter customer than it is a 1-inch meter customer. And so a larger volume user, because they have a larger meter size, they should bear a greater cost of some of those fixed charges, because just by their very existence, they are putting more stress onto the system. And so the readiness to serve charge is graduated based on meter size. Starting with the 5/8 meter, which is what predominantly a residential customer would be. On a monthly basis, that customer will be charged $7.89. And then it goes up from there based on the size of your meter. Sewer is basically the same idea. However, it's a little bit different because we're calculating it based on living units, not just based on meter size. A living unit in so imagine an apartment complex. You have 50 units. Well, they only have 1 meter coming into the complex, but you have 50 kitchens putting bacon grease down the drain. So that's 50 times that this corrosive substance is going in, which makes it much more likely that your workers are going to have to go in and service that meter, service the line running to it. And so for any multifamily unit, they're being charged based on the number of living units, so the number of units times the 5/8 charge. We've set these dollar amounts per meter based on the idea that we want to cover administrative charges and capital, not 100% of them. We could have, that is an option. It also could have been nothing. But the members of the committee that worked on this decided that to go right down the middle and say 50% of admin, 50% of capital will be covered by the RTS. And then the last 2 pages of the report. So it's an Excel model. It doesn't print very pretty. And so we've just done our best to show you what the math was. And there are pages and pages and tabs behind these. But all that's how the sausage gets made, and here's the sausage. So what it's showing you with the circles and the multiple colors is it's showing you that at the beginning of the model in the top left corner and at the end of the model in the bottom right corner, you're maintaining the same amount of working capital that you have at the beginning. So the first one is water. You have $10 million in your system for water at the beginning of the model. You have $10 million at the end. There's all these ins and outs of customers paying us and paying debts and paying for capital and paying for buying water, and all that stuff is coming in and out. But at the end of the day, at the end of year 5, you're in the same position you are today. The sewer page is the same. What questions can I answer? I know I just dumped a bunch of information on you.
Well, for years, Brian, we've talked about doing a study like this, but there were a lot of things happening. For example, you referred to DWSD. It's no longer DWSD. It converted over to
LEWA.
So that occurred. We had sinkholes. We had changes in the way they discuss how they rate our communities. So this year, we decided at the Ways and Means Committee to hire you through Plant Moran to do the study. Then we did another smart thing. We hired our engineering firm to double check what you did, and they concurred with your analysis, getting to it from a different angle. So when our accountants and when our engineers who get the same answer agree, coming at it from a different way, we're doubly assured that what you're giving us is very accurate. So I appreciate that. Do we know how many households will increase or decrease their bill based upon this change?
I do not know how many households will.
Or does that?
It all depends. So it depends on your consumption. But you can say that the elimination of the 5 unit per month minimum should help the low-end user.
Okay.
So, the little old lady that maybe uses 1 to 2 units a month, that person should see a reduction to their bill.
So I guess this question is more for you, Mrs. Hine. What was our increase from GL, WA, and also the county as far as if we were to go with our old system, what would we say our increase would have been percentage-wise?
Well, this year, we renegotiated our contract for water, and so there was a decrease in our rates through the Great Lakes Water Authority, but through the county, it went up, I'm trying to think, I think it was about 4.5%. So what we did with the assumption was we tried to make them consistent throughout the 5-year, or is it 5 or 4? 5-year, so that we wouldn't see the fluctuations based on what based on what Great Lakes Water Authority and based on what the county does. Now it's based on the assumptions that we've put into our projections. So we're trying to keep it consistent with the 1.2 and the 1.4% going over the projection period.
So in your opinion, this new system of billing will give people a greater opportunity to determine what their ultimate bill will be for that month?
Yes, and it'll be, in theory, the hope is it'll be more consistent.
Very good. Mr. Pearl?
Yes. I'm sure most of the board met with the Water Department and Accounting Department, Finance Department regarding this. I know I did, and I appreciate the time you took to put this together. It's not easy. We've been talking about it for 10 years, of putting a more effective system that allows people that are conserving water to pay less, because that 5-unit minimum didn't give you any break at all. If you were using less water, you were still paying for it. So I appreciate all the work that went into it. We did a lot of studying, looking at the figures, and I think you came up with a fair plan. I appreciate it. All your work also, Brian, with Platt Moran. I'm glad that we brought you in, because what you're looking at is what's, you've been studying this for a long time in a lot of communities, so you probably have a lot of good ideas on what's the best.
Yeah, I do 8 or 10 of these a year. As a firm, we probably do 25, 30 a year.
Oh, I appreciate your expertise in this. Thank you.
Further comments or questions from the board? Mrs. Meltzer?
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. So just a question on the last comment that you made regarding both the water and the sewer summaries. Was that ever different where those two numbers didn't match, or did they always match? In other words, whatever went out, is what would come in and so on?
You mean previously for you?
Yeah, previous to this analysis.
No.
Okay.
It would have fluctuated year to year. Like many communities, without a 5-year plan or a methodology for raising rates, or at least deciding whether or not to raise them, you're always playing catch-up. And so you're kind of reacting to, was last year a wet year or a dry year? How much did our bill go up? And then you're doing a calculation after the fact and then applying that to next year as an unknown. Doing the 5-year with a model, we've set a goal for 5 years. And it's not that you're locked in to doing anything every year for the next 5 years, but you should use the model to then update it and roll it forward one more year, and then one more year. And then it's kind of like driving a cruise ship. If you've ever been on a cruise, it doesn't turn on a dime. It kind of noses slowly in a direction. And since you have this 5-year horizon, you've got time to react to rate increases from GLEWA, or if there's a next sinkhole, or anything that the county's doing to allocate more debt to you. You can put it into the rate so that the customers don't, or put it into the model. The customers don't see it immediately, so you don't have to have this 1-year spike that's very painful. You can spread it out over the next 5 years and constantly change the direction that you're taking the cruise ship, but always going in the right direction.
Okay, so if I can follow up.
If I can add to that real quick. So in the past, remember when we would get a letter from the county, we'd get a letter from Great Lakes Water Authority, previously DWSD, and it would say Clinton Township is going to see an 8% increase this month, or, come July 1st. We would then come to the board and we would show in water an 8% increase. And the next year, we might get a letter from DWSD that said, we're going to get a 2% increase, okay? But the other thing that happens is then DWSD/Great Lakes Water Authority switch it, because we have a fixed fee now and a usage fee. And so things have changed, but we used to be literally, whatever they told us is what we would do. And we would just knee-jerk react to what they're doing. Now, we're looking and saying, this is, 5 years, this is the number, how can we put it in over 5 years?
Thank you. And I think the thing I like the most about this and we have been talking about this for some time, and that is that there is accountability by the consumer. So the consumer now can make a decision on whether or not they want to conserve. If they want their water bill to be lower, they can contribute to making that happen. And I think that puts the power back in the lap of the people. And I think that's really important, and I'm really grateful for the presentation that you gave, and I think we're moving in a great new direction. Thanks.
So, Brian, thank you. Appreciate your work on this. The biggest change here is, in a sense, that people can be directed in the choices that they make in terms of how much water usage, and there's a conservation factor that's built into this where there wasn't in the past, right? You use less than 5 units, you pay for 5 units regardless, right?
You did, yes.
So I've always asked since I got here, are we putting a disproportionate burden on people who are using less? And the answer was always, yes, but we need to handle all of these fixed costs, right? So we now know that Great Lakes Water Authority is charging us in two ways. You indicated that they're charging us a fixed cost and they're charging us a per unit charge of water. And so it makes sense to do this at this time, right? When did they make that change? When did Great Lakes Water Authority make that change? To create more of a fixed cost and a separate consumption-based?
It's been going on for several years now. I don't know, I can't remember exactly when.
Okay.
It's been at least 5.
Yeah, exactly. I want to say 5 to 7 years, but, sorry. About 5 to 7 years, but I'd have to go back to my contracts and look.
Okay. So when the ready-to-serve fee is related to the cost of maintenance of the system of bringing water to everybody, right? And then the sewer lines that take everything away, right?
Yes, some of the capital, yes, and some of the, and the
Do the
administration.
county and the Great Lakes Water Authority, do their increases work at the same time? When they tell us what their rates are for next year? Does that happen at the same time? You're just speaking? Okay. And that's based upon, so the county charges are based upon sewer alone, is that correct? Okay, so it's not the water. So Great Lakes Water Authority is just water, or, excuse me, Great Lakes Water Authority is water and sewer, and, no? So
Great
the
Lakes
county charges, because Great Lakes Water Authority for water treatment is charging the county.
Right, we are
Got
a
it.
first-tier customer for water, a second-tier customer
Okay.
for sewer.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
And so if we're going with now a ready-to-serve fee based upon the size of the line, the size of the water service going into the house, and there's no longer wrapping all of those fixed costs up into the unit charge, fiscal year 19 is 329 and fiscal year 20 is 333, which is an actual increase in the water rate charge, but it doesn't have the fixed cost associated with it. Help me reconcile that.
There's still some element of fixed costs there because you're paying, the RTS is only covering half of the capital, of the new capital. And it's only covering half of the administrative costs. So the cost of Mary, half of her is being paid through the variable rate and half through the RTS because she's part of the administrative component of the system. But the RTS itself, if you'll compare the 789 compared to, on page 4, $4.31 a month was the DWSD fixed monthly fee. So for that one, on the water side, the customer is paying more of a fixed rate, but they're not paying that 5-unit minimum necessarily unless they use the water. And so if you're using, for the people that use less than 5, they should see somewhat of a decrease. People that are using more than 5 will see a little bit more of an increase. So you have to take your own individual bill and run it through the filter to know, am I a low-end user or a high-end user? But I know every month I'm going to pay $7 and, I should memorize that.
All right, it was
$7.89.
it was indicated that there was a decrease in the Great Lakes Water Authority water charges for this upcoming year. Is that correct, or? Okay. Yet an increase is reflected here, and then it was also, and I get it, it's spread over 5 years, right? So that's why we've got that. But it was mentioned that wet weather or dry weather has an impact on what Great Lakes Water Authority charges us. Explain how that impacts their charges to us.
It doesn't change, it doesn't affect them as much as it affects you and how many units you're selling to your customers. Because if it's very, very wet, I'm not watering my grass. And you're making money in the margins. So as a seller of water, you want to sell more because you're covering more of your costs through that
More of
margin.
your fixed cost.
Yeah, but so when it's super dry, the township's going to sell a lot of water and make more money that year. But if it's super wet, you're going to make less, which is why you need to have that cushion, because you're selling less than what you had planned when you had set the rates initially.
So this formula takes into account wet and dry weather over a 5-year span
Yeah,
and
we're looking at
averages it out.
the average that you sell year to year and basing it on that 5-year average versus 1 year, what do we think we're going to do?
Okay. All right.
Mr. Keys?
Oh, yeah, just be quick. I'm in support of making this change for 2 reasons. One, I think it's showing that we're responsive to our residents. If knocking on doors, I didn't hear more than roads, it was the water bill, and explain to me the water bill. So I think this is a real opportunity to help make clarification and increase understanding of the bill. But then secondly, also the most important to me is that ability to conserve water. People can now see on their bill, if they're going to use less water, they should see that reflected in their bill. So I'll be voting in support of this.
Thank you. The floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Is there, we have a motion on the floor. We can hear from the community.
I like the idea of getting rid of the 5-unit minimum, but what I would say is, on the sewage, there again, the wet, dry year makes it very clear. On a dry year like this, if people are watering their grass, they're paying, the sewage fee is higher than the water fee. And when you're watering your grass, that's where people, on some of the different websites, people have been saying their bill has gone up 3 times. I know mine doubled, and it's a matter of, I never use the 5 units the rest of the year, but when I'm watering my lawn, you end up using more. I think that a lot of communities have built into it, and I think Harrison Township is one of them. During the summer months, they take off a percentage of the sewage fee because the water you're putting on your lawn is not bringing up your sewer fees. And I think the board should consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cannon?
Yeah.
If I can direct that or answer that?
Yes.
We do have an option for the summer months, or it's actually all year. It's called a deduct meter. So you can install a second meter that is showing for basically your, I'm sorry, I'm.
Excuse me, please don't yell out. You'll have an opportunity if you wish to speak.
So you do have a deduct meter that you can purchase, and then typically, depending on how much you water, again, it's based on consumption, but we've done some projections, and it's about 2 years, and then you start to see a benefit from it.
Thank you. He's not done, I don't think.
Well, there again. I was aware of the deduct meter. In the last community I lived in, I had one of those, and it cost $35 to get it, and then they would just filter it out, they'd take a reading on it at the end of the year, what you ran from the outside. The deduct meters here are very, very expensive, and most senior citizens and a lot of people just don't want to put out the huge amount of money that it costs, and I'm sure that can be explained by the water person. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Can we get your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name's Kirk Miller, 41999 Hensall. I've been a resident for 25 years, and I've been paying the minimum water bill, and I never understood why I had to pay that much in a single-person household, because obviously I know I use nowhere near that amount. And thankfully, Mr. Pearl addressed the fact that it does not encourage me to conserve water, because I'm paying for it whether I use it or not. So why should I conserve water? Several years ago, I got a notice from the township, and a placard even, saying that the township uses too much water. If we don't reduce our water usage, our bills will go up. And we were instructed, odd, even number system and everything. At the end of that year, I got a notice that as a township, we didn't use enough water, so our water bills went up. Now, I never understood that either, because they wanted us to conserve, or we would have to pay more, and we conserved water, and we wound up getting, our water bills went up anyway.
I think the county required us to send that notice out because they were worried about peak times when there was so much water usage. And that was causing their system to fail. And,
That would have been
Well-
DWSD.
yeah, that was the
You know,
old
and
system, the
that's
old-
understandable, because, I mean, like, if, you know, I used to get up early in the morning to go to work, and everybody's got their sprinklers on. It's kind of hard to take a shower.
Well, you should like the new rates then.
So,
So-
I'm sure I will. I'm glad to
But
hear
I
that.
think Brian
this-
explained that point. I mean, it can be answered if, with your indulgence.
It can
or-
be answered.
Okay.
And Brian already went through it, but we'll answer it again.
Okay, so kind of, I think a lot of people look at, with this minimum, like, it's almost like using the water bill to levy a tax on us to skirt Proposal A and the Headley to create more revenue. And when they were talking about the water, they were saying that the revenues were $44 million, expenditures were only 41. But the debt service deductions were $3 million, which is exactly what that difference is. So that, you know, that doesn't look too good either. I'd like, you know, to be able to conserve, I really don't know how much water I use, because I pay a minimum. So I don't know, and I'm pretty sure I pay sewerage.
It will tell you right on there what you're paying.
Well, it just says minimal, you know.
It says number of units.
It tells you the
No,
number
it'll
of
tell you.
units.
Okay, well, I think it was like 3 or something. or-
Do you have access to a computer?
Yes, I do.
So if you go to the Clinton Township website, actually, it's really a nice graphic display of how much water you use, and that graph goes up and down based on your usage, and
Okay.
you can kind of get an idea of, and you don't ever think you're using that much either. but-
Yeah, no, I really don't, unless I, you know, when I water my lawn and then I pay a huge water bill, which is understandable, aside from having to pay sewage on that. But, you know, I know you can get another meter and you can take care of that issue. So I just wanted to address those things, and I think the biggest thing for a lot of residents, especially people that live alone or just two people in the house, is the minimum charge. And I've been paying it for 25 years. And I think that's a lot of money over a 25-year period.
So you understand that's not going to be the case now, right?
When you talked about the new proposal and you mentioned that, I was, oh,
Okay.
great, okay. So that was the biggest thing, I think, so. And no, that's a different subject.
Okay, we'll stay with the community for a while, Brian. Anyone else in the community wish to speak? I do believe that a lot of people who have the minimum bill are going to be happy, but not everyone. A part of what your bill is going to be predicated upon the size of your meter. So don't go away thinking that if you got a big meter and you have 3 or 4 units, that you for sure will have a reduction. Someone who lives by themselves obviously has a much better chance of a reduction than those with a larger family. There's no question about that. Is there anyone else from the community? I think we put a lot of work into this. It's taken a long time. I think most of the board, all the board has been informed by both our engineering firm and our auditing firm, as well as our staff, of what this is going to do. It's a change, and it will be different, and we will have some questions, but I think it's a good change. Yes, ma'am, if you have a comment? Okay.
My name is Selma Haig. Do you need my address?
Yes,
40609 Karen Court, Clinton Township. I've lived in Clinton Township for 15 years. I've asked the same question. Why do we have this bill every month? We're working on it. You could help by getting a meter for your sprinkler, which I did. I go away, I have 3 kids, 3 different states. I'm always traveling, but I get the same bill month in and month out. No problem. This year, it was recommended that I turn my water off. We left on December 29. Came back March the 3rd. When I left, my bill was paid in full, I was told. I came back and I get a $133 bill. It shows meter read 0. But there was a difference in the dates. So when you plan your vacation, you have to plan it by the date that they bill you. Do they prorate that bill? No. So why do I go through all this effort to do this? I'm a single person. I'm home 6 months of the year, but they can't help us with our water bill. My cable bill got prorated. My electric bill went to nothing. My gas went to nothing, but the water bill doubled. Can you explain that?
Mrs. Bednar?
If I can get your address again, I'll look it up, and then I'll call you, or we can handle it. This is the first I'm aware of it, and I'm going to need to look at it.
There you go.
Thank you. Do you have is your phone number on
And
there?
the other thing that
You have to speak.
Ma'am?
You're speaking, you gotta speak at the mic, but she does need your phone number.
Can you put your phone number on here for me, so I can call you?
the other thing we were complaining
Ma'am,
about.
ma'am, you need to use the microphone.
They're talking about budgets. Do you understand our budget? This is the conversation we just heard. And we are on Social Security. Come on now. My last bill.
Thank you.
I lived in Texas for 30 years. I've never had a $100 water bill.
We need you to talk into the microphone so that we can all hear you. Okay, she's done. Anyone else wish to speak? That won't happen again because of the new system. There will be a ready-to-serve charge. You can turn your water off, there will be a ready-to-serve charge. We have to do that or we can't provide service. And it all depends on the size of your meter. Yes, sir.
When does it start?
Mrs. Bednar?
Our proposal is to start with your October usage, so it will be your November bill.
Okay, we have a motion and support on the floor. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gallahem?
Yes.
Mrs. Messer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 15, approval of the Garfield Road from M59 to 1,000 feet south of 19 Mile Road cost share agreement with the Department of Roads.
Mr. Cannon, is there someone here that can give a overview, or would you like me to read the
I
agreement?
think Mrs. Bednar will give a quick overview, and then I will add to it. Basically, we approved this once before, and the amount of money that we approved was about $350,000 to cooperate with the Department of Roads, and they were going to get 80% of the money from the federal government, and we were going to split the balance with the Department of Roads. But changes to the construction project and funding has become more complicated, and there are more and more rules that the Macomb County Road Commission must abide by when doing the actual design and construction of this project. Specifically, to avoid the chance of having the Garfield Road construction project amendment be mired down by the results of actions taken by the federal government, two simple administrative changes were proposed. The first change made was to the limits of the project. The limits were extended so that more funding listed in the TIP, which comes from SEMCOG, would be used toward construction costs. And the second change was the addition of construction engineering becoming a part of the federally funded portion of this project. So the expansion of the limits of the project were increased by 1,000 feet south of 19 Mile Road, which means the following year's project will have subtracted from it the cost of 900 feet. and the additional federal funding covering 80% of the construction and engineering costs resulted in this project estimated cost coming within the 25% of the regional TIP funded amount, which means the project could continue. Had this not been done, the project would have been done. The 80% that was coming from the federal government to do Garfield from Hall Road to 1,000 feet south of 19 would have been lost, and that project would not have been even started or completed. Mrs. Bednar, did I explain it the way?
You explained it very well. So the reason we're back here is because in January, when we brought all the different road projects forward, we said that this portion was going to be $375,000 for the township participation cost. When I got the new cost estimate, it's at approximately $500,000, $500,000. So the idea was we needed to bring it back so you're aware that there is an increase, but the scope did change. We are getting the 80% funding still. We would have lost it, and then the road wouldn't get done. So it's more of a bring to you and get, so that you know where we're spending the money and why we're spending it.
Mr. Pearl?
Yeah, I don't think we have a choice. I mean, this road's budgeted at almost $4 million. The road's horrible, like most of the roads in Clinton Township need to be redone.
Yep.
And they did a little bit of work around Millar. A couple of years they did one section, another year they did another. And is this going to be the same thing, Mary? That's going to be, they're going to grind it down and then put asphalt layer?
I believe that's the intent on it.
Yeah, I don't think we have a choice. And it is a larger scope, like you said, Mr. Supervisor. So,
Next year's project that we approved will come in less than what we approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilliam?
So in other words, the project is costing more. It's now a $4 million project. We're getting 2.971 from the feds, and the County Department of Roads is paying $500,590, and we're paying $500,589. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're spending $500,000 of general fund money, and we're getting $4 million worth of road work done.
Correct.
Motion to approve.
Support. Thank you. Supported by Mr. Keys. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Argona.
Yes.
Mrs. Melzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 16, additional work scope request for District E.
Dear board members, the District E Golden Street Sanitary Relief Sewer and Water Main Replacement Project is currently in the paving phase of the work. The sanitary relief sewer has been installed, and the water main work will be complete once the water services are transferred from the old water main to the new water main. Recently, AEW and the Department of Public Services visited the site to observe existing site conditions. One of the observations was the poor condition of the existing sidewalk throughout the project. The defects in the sidewalk along east side of Golden Street is primarily due to the water main installation work, which was an expected incidental expense and was part of the original contract. The west side of the street was found to be in equally poor condition. Those defects are attributed to age, prior tree root damage, and grading issues in the road right-of-way. Consumers Energy removed 417 lineal feet of walk as part of the gas main replacement. The current site conditions have made it evident that a complete replacement of the sidewalk is needed along the west side of the street. Based on the current contract unit prices, we estimate an additional $41,075 would be needed for the West Golden Street sidewalk replacement. We expect Consumers Energy to reimburse the township for the concrete sidewalk they had to replace. The estimated expected contribution for the sidewalk replacement work is $8,340. Another concern found near the project site is the appearance of several small sinkholes along the existing Baker College frontage at 15 Mile Road. We have determined the sinkholes are being caused by the abandoned sanitary sewer and sewer leads in this area. Defects in this non-functioning existing sewer and sewer lead taps are taking in a significant amount of soil debris into the public sewer system. After review of the sewer service area, existing sewer conditions, and future needs for this utility with the Department of Public Services, we conclude that the 380 lineal feet of 10-inch sewer can be abandoned. The crossing under 15 Mile Road will remain for future connection and extension. The contractor, Paymar Industries, Inc., has provided a proposal to abandon the sewer and stabilize the area where the sinkholes have developed. The total additional cost for this work is $23,991.91. In order to prevent the expansion of the settlement, we recommend this work be performed immediately. The aforementioned additional work scope items for this construction contract require Clinton Township Board approval. The total additional cost for these scopes changes is $65,066.91 with a reimbursement from Consumers Energy of $8,340. The total estimated net increase to the contract amount is $56,726.91 for these scope changes. This is a 3.12% increase in the original contract amount. This additional cost, along with all other prior and pending contract modifications, would revise the construction contract amount, which was $1,818,613.51, which was the original, to $1,961,216.42. A detailed breakdown of all existing and proposed contract modifications is enclosed with this letter. It is our recommendation to approve these additional work scope items to promote long-term public safety, improve neighborhood appearance, and to eliminate utilities causing an undue burden to the township. Sincerely, Scott Chabot, Senior Project Engineer.
So what you have in our last, we believe, ACO project, sidewalk replacement on both sides of the road, as well as the 15-mile abandoned sewer being repaired. And both are necessary projects.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call,
I
please.
just have a question.
Yes.
Scott, they're showing the bulkheads on that 10-foot pipe. They're going to bulkhead each end of it.
That's correct.
And get rid of the manholes. Is there any connections to that pipe underground still?
You're talking about well, there'd be the remaining manhole there, which we want to keep.
Well, that pipe's going to be a void. It's actually a void of whatever's in there.
Oh, they're going to use flowable fill.
That's what I want to know. Are they going to fill it?
Yes, sorry.
So there won't be any other sinkholes?
Correct. They're going to use flowable fill to fill the areas between the two bulkheads.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gilliam?
So the abandoned sanitary sewer line, is this the line that no one knew was there? That wasn't mapped?
No, that's that was a storm sewer that was from the Department of Roads. That was
Okay.
This is a separate,
Have we made any progress in getting reimbursement on that?
when we're ready to, at this point, once we get the costs for the reimbursement submittal that we had as part of our cost share, we were going to include it at that point in time
Okay.
for that request.
And whose line is it, the abandoned sanitary sewer line?
That line is a public sewer, used to service some residential homes there in front of Baker College at one point. But when Baker College was developed, those homes were demolished. And those currently, that sewer has no service.
Was it a township or county line?
That's a township line.
Okay. All right. And so basically, that's just sitting there abandoned, and then it's...
Taking in soil and debris.
Developing holes, and the water is rushing the dirt in and around.
Correct, and it's causing a maintenance issue and then a safety issue as well, so.
Okay. Right. Oh, wait, before we go, wait. 417 feet reimbursed by Consumers Energy, so 8340, so $20 for this, I mean, if I'm doing my math correct.
$20 a lineal foot, or?
For a linear, yeah.
Yeah, I have my calculator with me, but.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, it's the same, unit prices that we're using for our contract.
Okay.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes. Mary, what do we have budget? Do we have enough in the budget to cover this?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 17, stormwater education agreement.
Dear Mary Bednar, the Clinton River Watershed Council would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your community's participation in the Clinton River Watershed Council's Stormwater Education Program. The program began in 2003 and has assisted more than 40 municipalities, school districts, and educational institutions in educating the public about their role in preventing stormwater pollution in the Clinton River Watershed and Lake St. Clair. The program will continue to offer high-quality educational services as stormwater education presentations and workshops, Stream Leaders K-10 educational program, Adopt a Stream Citizen Science and Stewardship program, Clinton River Cold Water Conservation Project, River Safe, Lake Safe homeowner education program, Watershed Friendly Fertilizer Sticker program, Keeping It Clean, Weekly Clean and Clinton Cleanup, placemaking and GI implementation through our Water Towns initiative, fact sheets, articles, brochures, tip cards, dog waste bags, and more. We appreciate the opportunity to assist our local government members in meeting the requirements of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES, stormwater regulations. The CRWC Stormwater Education Program provides community programming while keeping costs low for municipalities. A copy of the Public Education Plan Biennial Report will be sent in November 2019. Your current contract expires September 30th, 2019. The new contract begins on October 1st, 2019, and we have attached the new 5-year Stormwater Education Program contract for your review. Due to increased program and educational services provided, we have increased our fees by 5% for year 1 and smaller increments in each successive year. Please review the attached agreement for services and respond to this letter with a physical copy of the signed agreement no later than September 1st, 2019. And if you have any questions regarding our programs and services, please contact us. Sincerely, Ann Brazy, Executive Director, and Kathleen Sexton, Program Manager.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mrs. Bednar? I think it says a lot in the letter.
Yeah, no, this is, you often hear me referring to our stormwater phase 2 permit, which comes from the Clean Water Act, actually, and then the state administers it. And so this is one of the components that we're required to do. It's a, mandated, unfunded requirement that we have to do, but it's good for our water. So this is one of the many components that we have to do. And so having the Watershed Council, who specializes in education, doing this measure, then say myself or staff that doesn't have the education, it makes sense. We've been using them. We actually did several years ago not use them for a little bit to see if we could do it, but it was pretty difficult for us to try to do that. So we've added this in, and it's a great service, and it meets our requirements for the education portion of the permit.
Mr. Cannon, if I can say the first cost would be a sum not to exceed $6,300 for the first year.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 18, bid award on the 2019 CDBG concrete sidewalk and ramp repair program.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Could I get clarification? That was approval for the 5-year contract,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
it
you.
was.
Dear board members, on July 11th, 2019, the Charter Township of Clinton's Clerk's Office received a total of 2 bids for the above referenced project. Our office checked the tabulation of the bids submitted, and the low bidder is Great Lakes Contracting Solutions, LLC of Waterford, Michigan, in the amount of $325,250. A copy of the final bid tabulations are attached with this letter. The project consists of concrete sidewalk removal and replacement in the Joy Boulevard area and repair of concrete sidewalk ramps in CDBG eligible areas of Clinton Township. Also see the attached map for those locations. As a condition of the bid requirements, prospective bidders were required to meet all applicable qualification requirements noted in Township Ordinance Number 413, Part 1. All responsive bids must include a completed, executed, and notarized contractor responsibility certificate. Great Lakes Contracting Solutions, LLC, provided the necessary qualification information to be considered for bid award. The bid results were reviewed with the Director of Public Services and Township Planning Department personnel. Based upon the bids submitted and conditions noted above, we recommend that the 2019 CDBG concrete sidewalk and ramp repair program be awarded to Great Lakes Contracting Solutions, LLC, located at 2300 Edinburgh Drive, Waterford, Michigan 48328, in the amount of $325,250. Sincerely, Scott Chabot, Senior Project Engineer for AEW.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cannon, if
Yes.
I could add that the award should be subject to the block grant agreement being executed. We were expecting to get that from the feds last week, and we have not.
I'll
So
add
it's
that.
subject to that.
Yeah, I'll add that to the motion.
And I'll support that.
Mr. Pearl?
Well, there.
Do you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Keys?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And through the chair to Ms. Bednar, just walk me through this. Is your staff going to go through these areas and find sidewalks that need to be replaced? Is that going to be on the contractor? Talk to me how that's going to unfold.
Our staff has already gone through, and those areas were identified, and so the
Yeah.
contractor bid on those areas as identified.
And so, because I can see the areas, but I don't have a number of exactly how many slabs need to be replaced or anything like that. We don't have that number yet, correct? Or we
The
do?
engineers, when we went out for bid, we gave a number there, and it is based on what we observed in the field. As any project, it's plus or minus. You can, it's a unit based, so it secures the unit cost. And that number is pretty accurate of what we set, but it could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less.
Okay. And then can you just remind me if this is the same contractor we used for their sidewalk program earlier this year?
No, it is not.
No, it's not. Okay, thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
There's a
Yes.
calculation.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 19, adoption of ordinance 459, revision to the fence ordinance.
This was introduced at the last meeting, and the change, that takes place is that it is, the appeal is through the ZBA. It does not come to the board for decision-making.
So moved to adopt.
Support.
Did you wish to speak on this item?
Yes. Sam Bushel, 18546 Wayland Drive. My big problem is, and there again, when this was talked about the last meeting, I asked and the attorney answered that this ordinance applies to both commercial and residential properties. My problem is, as I've let you all know, like the commercial properties like Pahoa Express, they've got over 1,000 feet of 6-foot fence that was put in. They didn't get charged a permit, which means that then the assessor doesn't get, if the permit doesn't go out, the assessor doesn't raise the taxes. And so this place is still getting assessed $40,000 less than what they even paid for the property. Then you have the fact that the commercial property right behind me, and there I've got a letter from the building official. They put in a privacy fence. They're not getting charged a permit or anything. There again, the assessor has no idea that this went in. And I've made the board members, each of you are aware of it. I'm wondering why are we spending money to adopt even more of an ordinance when we're not enforcing the current one fairly between commercial and residential? Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 20 is a,
Mr. Cannon, can I just say, so this comment that he made, that wasn't during the public comment section, it is during, so could he get an answer? Because if not, he's going to have to write it down, and I got to send it all over to you guys again. So is there any way you can answer his question? So he can
Help
deal
a
with
clerk
this?
out, will you?
Mr. Miller has answered that
second
question
that.
a number of
Huh?
times. Mr. Miller, department head, of the building department, has answered him a number of times. He just doesn't like the answer.
Okay. Okay.
Item 20, this is an introduction of ordinance 460, the revision of related water and sewer ordinances.
So moved.
Mr. Cannon, it's actually introduction to 460, 461, and the resolution. And if I can give you, they're all in your board packet. If I can just give you a quick summary. This is to introduce the rates and the new methodology that you approved earlier, so that our ordinance reflects that. So it reflects the new system, not the minimum fee, and then related items accordingly.
Thank you. Mr. Pearl made that a motion.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Do we need, is that all three in one, Jack, or do we need three
Yeah,
separate?
let me explain this, okay?
Yeah.
What we have in a single agenda item are modifications to two ordinances. And if you look in your package, you'll see that those two ordinances are so noted. We're asking tonight that the proposed, each of those ordinances be introduced and with the intent to adopt at the next meeting. That each one will require a separate motion. We're not asking for action tonight on the resolution. When we implement rates or modifications in our ordinances, we typically do that at the time that we adopt the ordinance as opposed to introducing it. So that will occur at the next meeting.
So-
We will need a separate motion on each
So
of
the
these.
first one is,
460, and I'll support the motion.
Okay, we're voting on 460. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
And
Okay,
460.
the floor's up for 461.
So moved.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Aragona. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Now we're voting on the resolution.
No.
No, we're going to wait till next.
No, that's just for you to, you and the public to
okay.
have the opportunity to have it presented, observe it.
Okay.
And that's essentially setting forth in resolution format a lot of the rates that already were part of the presentation that was made earlier on the methodology, item number 14. If you'll look at the
Okay.
resolution for our fee schedule, it's reflecting those rates.
Okay. Item 21, resolution recognizing September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week in Clinton Township.
Dear members of the board, for your consideration is a resolution to recognize September 17th to the September 23rd as Constitution Week 2019 in Clinton Township. September 17th of 2019 is the 232nd anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States. As the framework for the laws of our country and as the guardian of our liberties, let us join our nation in recognizing this significant historical document. Sincerely, Robert Cannon, Supervisor.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Pearl, supported by Mr. Keys. Roll call, please.
Mr. Burrow.
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Item 22, resolution recognizing September 13th through 22nd as Welcoming Week in Clinton Township.
Dear members of the board, please find attached a resolution recognizing September 13th to the 22nd, 2019 as Welcoming Week in Clinton Township. In 2015, Clinton Township became the first welcoming township in Michigan. As a welcoming township, we are part of a movement of communities across the globe who recognize that welcoming residents of diverse backgrounds builds unity and strengthens connections. Thank you for your consideration to adopt the attached resolution. Sincerely, Robert Cannon, Supervisor.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Keys,
Support.
supported by Mr. Aragona.
We've got a little overlap here. I'm assuming that's not an issue?
No.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
And
We get some.
item 23, request approval to extend the roofing warranty.
Dear members of the board, the warranty on the roof at Civic Center Building A is expired, and Civic Center B expires next year. The contractor that replaced the roofs, Tremco Incorporated, has contacted us to inquire about extending the warranties. There are 3 steps to extend the warranties. The first step is an infrared scan of the roofs at a cost of $2,780 for both roofs. The second step is to repair any deficiencies. The cost is unknown at this time, but the roofs appear to be in decent condition. The third step after repairs is to initiate the extended warranty. The cost is $8,094 for a 10-year warranty for buildings A and B. We will advise you when we have the cost of the repairs. This is not a budgeted item. The fire department will also be requesting a warranty extension for the roof at Fire Station Number 5. Tremco is giving us a better rate by combining warranties for all 3 roofs. Replacement costs for the roofs would be approximately $100,000 each. We are requesting board approval to proceed with the infrared scan and warranty extensions for buildings A and B totaling $10,829. Sincerely, Mary Bednar, Director of the Department of Public Services.
If I could add that the fire department added a letter as well to this item. Kim, do you have that letter?
From Tremco?
No, from the fire department, because this
I
is
do,
for,
yeah. Dear Honorable Board Members, the roof warranty for Station 5 located at 43800 Elizabeth Road is set to expire in October 2019. The contractor that replaced the roof, Tremco Incorporated, has contacted us about extending the warranty for an additional 10 years. There is a three-step process to extend the warranty, which at the first step is the infrared scan at a cost of $1,360. The second step is to repair any deficiency, with the cost being unknown, and for any reason repairs. The third step is the 10-year extended warranty at a cost of $11,660. And this, again, is not a budgeted item. We do have funds available in our repair and maintenance line item, and this is due to anticipated costs for repairs that were not needed and created a surplus in the line item. I thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Timothy Duncan, Fire Chief.
Yeah. Mary, what kind of roofs are these? Shingle?
so it's the two roofs here at the Civic Center, which is it's the flat roof with the membrane.
Flat roof?
Yeah, they're here at the Civic
So
Center.
how long ago was it installed?
I'd have to pull up, hold on. There was two different ones. Oh. Hold on, I'm doing two things at once. Building A was, they were installed about 15 years ago. You know what, I don't have my notes right here, I'm sorry. But they've been around for about 15 years.
So, Mr. Cannon, if I can ask.
Yes.
Were you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
So are the first two roofs at a cost of $18,923? Are we combining the $8,000 and the $10,000?
So the first two is for A and B. The total cost would be $10,829, which includes the infrared scan and the warranty for both
Okay.
roofs.
And then an additional 11.
And just to clarify, when the Civic Center was built, remember, we built it in sections. So this appears to be one building, but we view them as separate buildings because this part was built as the court, so that's a different building than the main. So when we call Building A and Building B, we're referring to all Civic Center, but it's just the individual sections. Does that make sense?
So, but there is an additional $11,660 for the fire, is that correct?
And then fire has their fire station number 5, which would be an additional $13,020 when you add the infrared and the 10-year warranty.
Okay.
Mary, has anybody, from an engineering standpoint, looked at the feasibility of extending? I mean, are they just looking to scan the roofs and then charge you a figure to repair them?
So if you look at the Tremco, the second sheet of what was submitted with our packet, we have warranties that expire on the different buildings at different times. Building A and B has already, let me make sure I got that right. A already expired, so that's why we're going to do the infrared to make sure, and then they'll extend the warranty from there. So we've already, but we've been up there, it appears, it's just the infrared is to make sure there's no major, because the warranty already expired, but they're offering us to extend it after that. Well, right, once we do the infrared, we'll bring back those repair costs to you, but I can't tell you what that is because we haven't done the infrared. This is to ask for approval. And
Yeah, I can't approve any warranties until we see the reports. If you're going to do an infrared check of the roofs, fine, for structural reasons, but then let's look at it. We may have to put it out for bids, for work being done on it.
So,
Because they're saying if there's any deficiencies, they have to do that, and then the warranty would be on top of that. So it may have to be put out for bids.
The repairs.
The repairs.
Right.
Depending on the size of the repairs.
Yeah. So are you just looking for approve the infrared scans of the roofs to see what condition they're in?
hold on, let me check something real quick. So what you want to do is approve just the infrared, know what the.
And bring it back.
And bring back what the results are.
Yeah.
And as far as the warranty, and then, okay, I do know that they did put in there that if basically the warranty, after the warranty expires, the amount will go up. So we're going to have to bring this back in a very timely fashion.
Okay.
3 weeks?
Wait.
It's 3 weeks is the next meeting.
Because it says the costs are unknown at this time.
For any repairs, if we have to do any, but we don't believe there is because of the condition of the roof.
Are you done?
Yeah, I guess.
Mr. Keys?
So which building are we worried about expiring? We have Building A that expired in 2016, and the rest of them are the soonest, it looks
So
like 2020.
Building B will expire in May of 2020, and the
Right.
fire department expires October 1st, I believe, is what they said in the fire. Let me-
I don't see that one.
5.
Maybe that's something I'm not looking
Yeah,
at.
the warranty date isn't there.
Okay. What was the thought process on the 2016? Did we just
It
not?
said, in the fire letter, it says it's set to expire October of 19.
Okay, that's for building, or
That'd
Fire
be for the
Station
fire
5.
station.
Okay.
And what was the thought process on letting Building A expire for so long? Is that we didn't feel we needed it on that building, or?
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay. And how long is this deal on the table?
So when Tremco came to us, they're looking at getting those extended as soon as possible.
Well, of course they.
And I don't have, it doesn't,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sir, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I don't understand why second step to pay an unknown cost to repair deficiencies if it's under warranty.
Mrs. Bednar?
it currently, so A is currently not under warranty, it expired in 16. And B, in order to get the extended warranty, they want to know, and then if it is covered by warranty, because the warranty is included in your packet, then obviously that would be covered. But if it isn't, if there's added work that isn't, then we would get that work done.
And we're obligated to get that work done through them, or no? We can still bid that out after we get that report?
I think we'd have to see the report, and depending
Right.
on, we have a bid policy.
Well, the only one expired is A. All the rest aren't expired.
A has expired, and the fire station will expire on October of 19.
Of what year?
Of this year?
October 19th.
I mean, that's something we just learned sitting here.
It says.
So September
Fire department
30th
says
is the next meeting.
2020, 2021, 2022.
Of
They're
5.
saying in that letter, though,
Of 5. Fire Station 5, it's in the letter.
that we don't have a copy of in front of us.
Oh, we don't have.
You should.
But it's up
Yeah,
here.
We do. It's right here.
I
It's
don't-
in there.
It's in my-
Scroll down more.
Okay, I'm sorry, let me.
Can we approve the scans and see if, whatever the board wants to do, but.
Who would be doing the scans? This company?
They would.
Trumco.
Tremco would be doing the scans. That's,
And how much would that cost us?
is broken
It's in
down
the letter.
for the infrared scans for
Exit it out.
Civic Center's 2,780, and for the fire department, it's 1,360.
Okay.
Mr. Argona?
Yeah, if we do these scans and they find any deficiencies though,
Then we
if
have.
I'm
to
reading
pay.
this, but why would we have to pay if the only one expired is Building A?
So depending on so when they do the scans, if a deficiency falls under the warranty, we won't have to pay.
Okay.
Okay, but if it's something that, it's a requirement to get an extended warranty, they want to know,
Exactly what's there.
where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So if it's something that's not covered by the warranty, we would get it fixed so that we could get the extended warranty in the future for all the other things that are covered.
So what's covered by the warranty and what wouldn't be,
If you look at, the copy of the warranty has been included in the board packet. Hold on. It's the last page of the board packet.
Yeah, it explains it all.
It explains it all.
All right. And then, last question, do you know, has there been any times over the last 15 or so years since we've gotten the roof, that we've needed to call the company out to do any type of warranty work?
I'm not aware of any.
Floor is open for a motion.
Well, I'll move that we approve the scans and get a report back immediately and to the board.
I'll support that.
Roll call, please.
Who seconded it?
I did.
You did.
Yeah.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Argona.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Approval of the minutes of the August 26th regular township board meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Approval of the bills.
So moved.
Support.
Mrs.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We have one public comment this evening.
Sam Bushel, 18546 Wayland Drive. Basically, there again, the building official has answered on these fence things, and what it is, as you all know, no permits have been required, no have been issued, nor have any taxes been assessed. If you all approve of that, that's your fault. There again, I'm here actually wanted to talk about your public comment, questions, you know. There again, on March of 2001, you adopted with amendments a public comments part of the Open Meetings Act. You have this form if people want their questions answered. And there again, you have to fill everything out, you got to sign it. And there's a bottom part where it's for internal use, where it's referred to, who to settle it, the date received back at the clerk's office, the action taken, and then the signature of whoever took care of that. Well, the clerk says she doesn't keep any of these. There's no records kept of this, even though it's part of the open meeting. You also have no way, there again, the treasurer and the clerk, and each of you I sent emails to, asking for answers to these comments, and going back to July, they just weren't coming. And I guess if, you know, because this is a part of the, your actual official way to handle the Open Meetings Act, I believe, number one, the clerk has to keep records of this. And I believe you have to have some way, as it is now, the clerk says there's nobody, and there again, the treasurer agreed. There's no way, nobody has to answer the citizens. You never have to get an answer to your question. So that makes this policy, the way you are using it right now, and each of you is aware of it because I emailed y'all, is the fact that this is just a way that you don't have to talk to the citizens at all. I think that's just really, really good, but there again, you're shaking your head, but it's true. I emailed you, you know I haven't gotten the answers. And not one of these board members, even though this is part of your official Open Meetings Act, have bothered to give me the answers. I think that's a shame. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Aragona. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.